Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today on this lovely Tuesday morning for us here in the US. It depends really where you are in the world. My name is Corina Hierro. Thank you all so much for joining us today for today's virtual event. And this one is called Techstars Selection Criteria. It's a founder's guide. So today you will be learning what it takes to make the cut at Techstars, and you're going to get to learn directly from our lovely Techstars Managing Directors about the key selection criteria and how you can position your company for success. Today you will get a comprehensive overview of the Techstars Accelerator, its benefits, the opportunities that we offer founders, and you're going to get to discover the key pillars that Techstars looks for in startups, along with other tips and tricks on how to stand out during the application process. The first half of this hour will be a presentation, and the second half will be a live Q&A. So you're going to get to ask questions. So if you are joining us here on Zoom, go ahead and leave us your questions on the Q&A box. And if you are joining us via LinkedIn, go ahead and leave your questions or comments in the comment section, and we will relay them over to this Zoom call. So say hello, where are you dialing in from? We would love to know where you are joining us from. So without further ado, I'll let our managing directors kick it off.
Terrific. Hi, I'm Keith Kamheim, Managing Director of the Techstars Economic Mobility Accelerator, powered by Somb Adventures.
And I'm Jennifer Davis, and I'm the Managing Director for Techstars Boston.
And so we'll just tell you a little bit about our own programs, but this is a more general introduction to Techstars overall, not our specific programs, but just so you know the context from which we're both coming. My program, which is the Economic Mobility Program, is focused on supporting talented entrepreneurs who are designing solutions to help low to moderate income Americans, namely the 60% of people who work paycheck to paycheck. And we cover areas like workforce development, education, financial services, benefits access, and so forth. And we're based in New York City.
And for the Boston program, we really lean into and leverage the ecosystem that we have here in Boston. And so we're looking for companies that are really that can leverage the ecosystem of Boston to accelerate their growth. And that's really in the areas of health tech, sustainability, climate, future of work, the built environment. And of course, nowadays there's AI and ML in pretty much everything that we see. But we really look to those companies and want to be able to surround our founders with the mentors, potential partners, potential customers that live right in our backyard.
Terrific. So with that context, the brief agenda here is to cover maybe half our time, a little less. We'll do some presentation, then we'll open up for questions. So again, use the Q&A button in your Zoom chat area there to chat for saying hello, Q&A for asking questions. Karina will field the questions and send them to us at the end. But what we'll do here is run through a little background on Techstars for those who might be new to it. And to give a little context before we jump in specifically to selection. Then Jennifer will go through our selection criteria, and it varies a little bit from program to program, but overall we have a holistic approach to selecting and evaluating companies. And then we'll each give a couple of our own tips from our experience on how to stand out in your application process, and then open it up for questions. And I should say, by way of my own background, I'm running the Economic Mobility Program now, but I've run half a dozen programs at Techstars mostly in the social impact category. I've run the Future and Longevity Program funded by Melinda Gates's Pivotal Ventures, and also some classes of our JP Morgan program as well. And I used to manage Accelerator. So I have a pretty broad scope of thinking about how our accelerator works and how the admissions process works. So happy to answer any questions on any of that. So with that, again, before we jump into selection, which is probably what made you show up, I'm going to take you on a little detour into a little background on Techstars to set the stage and give you some context. And then Jennifer will dive into the selection process. But the background is that at Techstars, you'll find that all of us are inspired by the belief that entrepreneurs can change the world. And that fundamentally is what drives us. Most of us have a fair amount of entrepreneurial experience before we join, and now we're here in support of you all because you're the ones in the seat making it happen. And the idea of helping entrepreneurs change the world starts with this idea that entrepreneurs are the crazy ones. We've all been there, and we like you're the overachievers who answer a calling to make a difference by solving something that you think is broken, or bringing something to the world that you think the world needs. But starting a company is hard. It's risky. There are many more ways to fail than succeed. You work long hours for little pay. You have limited resources and need to make progress quickly. And the payoff is enormous if and when it does work. So with that in mind, Techstars, founded by entrepreneurs, was started back in 2006 in Boulder, Colorado, with a simple idea that even though every startup is different, there's a common core of things that help set you up for success, and problems that can be avoided by people who've seen that before, and can help you chart a better path. So by surrounding a group of a dozen startups with a structured program and 100 mentors who've been through the drill before, and do it in a tight 13-week program where we help you evaluate strategy at the beginning, pressure test it with a lot of mentor feedback, and then get a group of mentors to help you make progress quickly over a 13-week period, ultimately culminating in getting investor ready and how you tell that story externally. We might be able to help startups avoid some of the more common mistakes that we all make along the way, and chart a faster, better path, which can be the difference between being successful or not, ultimately, in a business. And by doing that we just might be able to help increase the odds of getting to success. And punchline, of course, some 18 years later, is that the experiment worked out pretty well. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today. And Techstars is today run in over 40 locations around the world each year. There have been over 400 classes of companies going through, with over 4,000 Techstars graduate companies. You can see the rest of it. There are thousands of mentors, hundreds of exited companies. The companies that have gone through our accelerators have gone on to raise over $27 billion in funding, have a cumulative market cap of over $110 billion, and 20 of them have already gone on to unicorn status, worth over $1 billion each. And we like those last few stats in green in particular, because they say not only do we love the companies we're supporting, but outside investors are voting with their wallet to say they think that they're doing something pretty special as well. And the process of going through this acceleration is quite helpful to their results. The thing, a lot of what we do is relatively unchanged from those early days on surrounding companies with mentors, and the core concept holds. The thing that's most changed is the scope of the network over that time. So not only is the individual node of a single accelerator a very hands-on, incredible experience of working with a class, a program team, and a group of mentors, but beyond our individual nodes, I run one, Jennifer runs one, and we're interconnected throughout the world now. And with these 43 accelerators, the thousands of alumni, tens of thousands of investors who put money into a Techstars company over time, the community programs that we run that are pre-accelerator, Startup Week, Startup Weekend, our mentors and the corporate innovation partners that the companies have access to, create a framework for an extraordinary network and access beyond the individual program node, and ongoing support of the companies after graduating from the accelerator as well. And so the basics of what any given accelerator is it's 12 companies getting together for a 3-month intensive boot camp, and the goal of making 2 years progress in 13 weeks. And how do we do that? And the companies consistently tell us that's what they feel they're doing. It's really two ways. One is by getting focused and working hard, and with support of people who can be helpful. And then part of it is avoiding dead ends and preemptively avoiding some of the mistakes that could have taken an extra year to go down a wrong go-to-market strategy that other people might know is going to be challenging, that maybe there's another path that's quicker. So you cut time off of dead ends, and you improve the pace down the ones that work well, and get access to people who can be supportive. The programming itself in the accelerator breaks roughly into 3 months. Consider the first month a focus on refocusing the business. In my program, I call it vision to execution mapping, and then we get into mentor madness. But we all do some version of running some content at the beginning that helps you think through the strategy, and then pressure testing with a lot of mentors and a lot of feedback during the accelerator. And then we focus on supporting traction and growth with a group of lead mentors in the program team and KPI check-ins and weekly cadence of activity, followed by getting investor ready and ultimately having a demo day to talk about what you've done. A typical week in the accelerator includes a lot of workshops from experts, one-on-ones with the program team, and if you have a partner in the program like we do, one-on-ones with them, office hours with mentors, stories from other founders and venture capitalists on that have come before you to tell you what their journey's been like, KPI sessions, pitch practice, and so forth. And it's again a highly supportive experience of making growth. And then finally, I went to this in detail. If you search on the web for Techstars deal terms, you'll find the full detail of this. But just so you know the deal that everyone gets coming into the accelerator, Techstars does become a 6% common stockholder in your company, and common stock is a very founder friendly, which we're basically sitting within the founder side of the cap table, supportive. And on your side of the negotiation with future investors, so that's a kind of supportive version of accelerator capital. And in exchange, it's a 3-month accelerator, some expenses in the program, an optional $100,000 note, office space, and so forth. So there's a lot of benefits to coming through in the program itself, but then also for life afterwards. So we consider Techstars not just to be a 3-month program, but Techstars for life is that you have portfolio service, connection to network, and a lot of resources after the program as well. All right, much more about all of that on our website, so I won't belabor that any further. I'm happy to answer questions after if you haven't put them in the chat below in the Q&A section, but I'll turn it over to Jennifer to go through our selection process.
Great, thanks, Keith. So really, this is just to give you guys an overview of the process, how we think about applications, how we look through them, to give you a little inside peek of our experience, and hopefully help you in the process. But our goal with the entire application process is to make sure that it is equitable and transparent. We hope that it's actually a learning experience for you, whether or not you're selected. So hopefully within some of the conversations that you have with our teams, that you'll actually pull out some little nuggets of something helpful to help move you forward. And then just remember too that this is a mutual evaluation. So yes, we are looking at your company, we're evaluating your team, your company, but you're also evaluating us in the process as well. And so obviously there are a lot of different Techstars programs, and you're looking to find the one that's the best fit for you and the one that you think is going to be able to help you move along. And so obviously Techstars, we have incredible managing directors and program teams across every single program, but each program has their own thesis or ecosystem. And so really evaluating what is the best fit for you is important along the way. All right, if you go to the next one, great, thanks. So you make the step, you apply to Techstars, and you just sit there and you wait and you wonder what's happening. Well, we want you to know we review every single application. So yes, we get hundreds of applications and we look at every single one. So you will get eyes on your application, absolutely. Interviews are usually scheduled, 1 to 6 weeks after the applications close. And then our goal is to let each applicant know our decision no later than 8 weeks after that close date. So you will hear from us one way or the other. Next one, Keith, thank you. So the big question is, what do we look for? And I'd say we have 6 criteria that we look at when we are evaluating the applications. And the first 3, no surprise, are team. We found that really the most important factor in a company's success is the team itself. And so we look for entrepreneurs who have that strong vision, and they are also strong executors. They are resilient because we know it is really hard to be a founder. There are a lot of obstacles that are thrown up in your way. And so the ones that can really push through are the ones that we want to meet and talk to. And again, we want to make sure that the founders are truly motivated to solve the problem. So it's not necessarily that they are attached to the solution, but they are uniquely, passionately motivated to solve this particular problem that they're addressing. The next is that we look at, the next criteria is the market itself. So we want this to be a large market, a big problem that you're aiming to solve. It is hard enough to get startups off the ground and to be successful. So we want to work on the ones that really are going to have a big, make a big mark and have a big impact. The next I'd say is progress or traction to date. So we want to see some early traction. That doesn't necessarily mean revenue, but it certainly can mean some revenue growth. It needs to be some sort of measurable, validation of your core assumption that, you're actually, making progress on, your product, on the customer discovery side of things. So any sort of progress that you can share along the way to show that forward momentum is super important. And then I'd say the last piece is the idea itself. And we really put this at the tail end because we know that companies tend to pivot and change. And so again, if you're really passionate about the problem that you're solving, the solution may adjust and change along the way. So that's why it's important, but not nearly as important as those other pieces. All right, so the application process. So you submit your application, it gets an initial review. Like I said, we read through every single application, each program team. So for example, if you submitted an application to both my program and Teex program, we would both see your application in our portals and be able to review that. And we look really at that when we're scoring them and reviewing them, we're looking for the company strength and the thesis fit. And I think Keith mentioned this earlier too, that each program team, might do things a little bit differently, but again, like in the big picture, this is like roughly the process that we all follow. Next is the interview. So hopefully you are lucky enough to get one of those top spots for an interview. We do tend to interview about like the top 100 or so, maybe a little bit more depending on the program. And again, this might be slightly different per program, but it's roughly a quick 25-minute, sometimes 15 to 25-minute interview. We're really looking to get like the high level like overview of getting to know you better. What's your, tell us more about your team, the problem and solution, your vision, your overall traction that you've had to date. Why are you the founders that are the ones that are building this particular startup? How will you scale it or monetize it? What are you building now, today, versus, what are you thinking about 6 months from now or a year from now? And then also we're gauging, why Techstars is the right fit here. We want to hear why you feel like Techstars would be right for you right now. Like, why is this the moment where we could be most beneficial in, to be part of your journey? And again, like there's no sort of set questions because each application is different. And so, some areas of your application may be more clear. Some we may want to dig into a little bit more to get that clarification. But we typically do, like I said, we typically have like interview 1 is about the top 100, interview 2, we sort of narrow it down to the top 50 or so. And then from there, we usually choose about 30-ish to do a deep dive. And these are longer, 45, 60-minute interviews where we want the full team. We want to meet all the co-founders or the core team members. We talk about each of the founders' strengths, any gaps on the team, how you resolve disagreements, because we know those disagreements may happen. We talk deeply about the product. We get a product demo and see where things are at. We talk about, like I said, your short-term goals, like more of your 3 to 6 month goals, and your longer-term goals as well. And of course, we talk about everyone's favorite topic, fundraising. So get a sense of where you are, where you want to be, a few months from now, what your runway is, and how we can help along in that journey. And then for the top 24, we invite the top 24 companies to pitch in front of our screening committee. And this is really a quick 5-minute pitch followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. And our committee is typically comprised of our program team, as well as a few key mentors who are subject matter experts, some friendly investors, sometimes some managing directors from some other programs will hop in. And in the case where it's a partner program, there are often leadership members from that organization included on the committee as well. And this is really just a great way for us to get additional feedback on those top 24 companies. And from there, the final step is for the managing director to make offers to 12 companies and select our class for the upcoming program. So that is really just a quick overview of what we sort of look for and types of things we do along the way. And now I think we have got some tips that we want to share. So Keith, I'm going to pass it back over to you to share some tips, and then I'll jump in with a few of mine.
Terrific. Yeah, we got 2 slides, one from each of us on some tips, and then I'll encourage you to use the Q&A button to ask some questions. One suggestion too is if you look there, if you see another question's already asked that's the same as yours, put a thumbs up on it. That way Karina will know that multiple people have an interest in that one, and then you can go ahead and enter a different question if you don't see your question already being asked, and that'll help us guide to the ones that are most pressing for you. And then, relative to the selection process, just before I hit the tips, virtually same process for us in my program. I will say when there's a partner involved, sometimes it can vary a little bit. So for instance, there are 3 interviews involved in our process as well, but the second round, one of them's with Techstars team and one's with our partner team. The partner team is asking some different questions about fit with theme and impact, social impact lens, because it's a social impact program. So the process might vary a little bit from program to program, but again, largely the same in how we're going through step by step. And so with that, this is, I guess, 2 managing directors' view of some things that help you stand out in the process when applying to our programs. And I will say we're all in touch with each other in the background as well. So we're trading tips and notes and experiences with companies. So we're pretty familiar with the overall sense of how other MDs think as well. So here are a few things that have come out over time. A few that are just kind of quick ones right from the top is, pick the right program. We have you look, there's room in our application system to identify a primary choice and an alternate choice. Use those selections reasonably wisely in terms of ones that are a fit for you. Like, is the thesis actually aligned with what you're looking for and what your company is building? You'd be surprised on how many companies we see in the pipeline where they just didn't really seem to look at the program they were applying to, and maybe just picked it because of the city that was in and didn't look at the page to just see like what's the focus of that program. So like for my program, if it's not focused somehow on economic mobility, we don't get much further in the application because it's just not a fit to the thesis. So do that initial work of at least read the web page. Each of us curates our web page pretty carefully and puts right up top what we're looking for, and there are plenty of clues in there on the page that should make that simple. And then also, I think most of our programs now are in person in the cities where they're run. There are some that are hybrid or remote, so-called anywhere programs. If you're not looking to be in the city where the program is run and go commit to being there for the better part of 3 months, then that also wouldn't be a great fit. So anyway, pick your programs for ones that are actually a fit for what you're looking for. And then second tip, again, is read the web page. We actually spend, each of us has some kind of document that's one link down from our web page, which is a 5 questions document with the MD on things that they're looking for, things that they do in their program. On my page, for instance, we've got links to AMAs and videos of things we've done with our mentors, talking about thought leadership in the category. And so there's plenty of information there to understand what you'd be getting into in a given program. And by reading that, and this is the same tip if you're going out to raise capital from venture capitalists, it's like the same exact thing. Like, read the VC's webpage. They put some time into trying to explain to you exactly how to appeal to them. They're not trying to keep it secret because they want good fits to want to be interested. We're doing the same thing. So just take a peek and do a little bit of homework before you bother filling it out. The next tip is be clear. Don't bury the lead somewhere. If you got something that's really compelling about your company, put it at the beginning. While Jennifer said we read every app, we're just by the numbers, it's a quick process. And so if it's buried way in the details of what's unique and special about what you're doing, or even if it's just unclear what you're building and it's obfuscated and very flowery language about changing the world or something like that, and not just saying like, what is this thing? Like, what problem are you solving and how are you doing it? We might miss the point. It's not that it's not great. It's just like it won't, we'll miss the point. We actually do this exercise at the beginning of when we start our investor readiness portion of our accelerator. I actually have all our founders put themselves in the seat of a VC for a moment and say, all right, you got 2 minutes to review each of, so we get 30 minutes total, 15 inbound emails from founders on who to go interview for a spot with that VC. And you quickly get the idea like, oh, I better be succinct and clear at the beginning of any investor communications because they're just dealing with volume. So don't get lost in the shuffle just for lack of being clear about what you do. And clarity, clarity tends to win. Highlight the team strengths. Jennifer was, all of us, team is first. Like we mean it. We emphasize that it's both by way of repetition, that it's that important, and also that it means a few different things. It means ability to articulate a clear vision. It means ability to execute and get traction, or the right people on the team to build the solution you're trying to build. Like if you're building the latest AI, whatever, and you have no AI chops on the team, how exactly are you doing that? But so make it clear what the strengths are and why you've been put on this planet to solve this problem. And again, relatively succinctly, the details can follow underneath that, but highlight what makes you special. Make the traction clear as well. If you've got revenue, that's an easy thing. Up and to the right revenue always is a great way to explain that the market wants this. But if it's something short of that, make it clear that you've got a pilot underway, or you've gotten X amount of feedback from people using your prototype or whatever it might be. But just make it clear that someone wants to use what you're building, because that's validation. And the reason validation is always important, not only to us, but to any investor, is because while we do try to invest in and support companies in areas that we understand well, we're not necessarily complete experts on every single industry and market and every subsegment of it. So the best validation is that the customers actually want what you're building. And so showing that, it demonstrates that, hey, you're superior to competition in some way, or your idea has merit. So that validation is always helpful in the form of traction. And then don't hide competition. Bring it forward and explain why you're different. I mean, you'll need to do that to have your business succeed anyway. And so having that come out right in the application itself and highlight your differentiation is key. And the simple tip there is that, someone's going to search on competition. If you're not otherwise listing it, someone's going to search on competition for your space as part of the process. And when they uncover one that you didn't mention, they'll be like, oh, did you not even know about this one? Or, what's the deal here? And without you proactively mentioning it and saying how you're different, you miss the opportunity to say why you're better. Because, it's somewhere along the way, it's going to be assumed that there's competition in any category. So those are a few quick tips. Again, feel free to drop some questions in. I'll throw over to Jennifer for some from her, and then we'll get some questions.
Great, thanks. So on my side, Keith mentioned about making sure you do your research about your selections in terms of primary versus alternate program preferences. So you do have the option to select up to 2 program preferences. There are sometimes where we've seen that companies don't select any program preference. And I would say, please pick 2. Do your research, pick the 2 that you feel are most aligned with your company and what you're building. Because if you don't pick one, it is actually harder for your application to be seen and reviewed. It gets put in more of a general bucket. And then sometimes we do go and we do look in the general bucket, but we'll look in like our specific Boston or area program first to choose the companies or review the companies that have actually selected our program. And then after the fact, depending on where we are, we may look in that more general bucket. So if you don't pick a program preference, it will be harder for your application to be seen and reviewed. The next point is, please make sure your deck link is active and accessible. So sometimes we'll be reviewing an application, we'll click on that link to look at your deck, and it'll say, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have access, please request it. Or, worse, we'll get one that says, you'll get a message that says, oh, the deck is in the owner's trash. This makes it really hard for us to look at your application in the most complete way possible. As Keith mentioned, we are reviewing every single application, but it is relatively quick. So if we don't look at your deck or we don't have access to your deck on that first review, it is harder for us to sort of go back again multiple times to see if we have access at that point. So please make sure that's active and accessible. Be truthful. So please don't embellish or lie on your application. Obviously, you want to put forward you want to put forth a compelling application, but just be honest, and otherwise it will come back to burn you at some point. So we just want we want the real company. We want to know the real you, and that goes to the sort of next point, which is be authentic. Whether on your team video, like, let us know the real you, let your personality shine, give us your show us who you're about and what you're about. The other tip I'll put on the team video is oftentimes you'll create a video and you'll want to use it for multiple purposes. I would recommend maybe not mentioning another program or accelerator name in your video. Sometimes that has happened where they say, oh, I'm so excited about this other program. And it's like, oh, but you're applying to Techstars. So, keep it real, keep it authentic. And then the last one is send updates. So this is actually something that we tell our founders and we coach our founders to do once they're already in our program is, send regular updates to your investors, to your mentors, to your community to let them know your progress. And I would say as an applicant as well, so if you do get to that first interview stage, start sending some regular updates to the managing director or the associate who you met with. And it shows your forward progress. It keeps you top of mind. And it actually might push a company who was maybe on the fence of moving forward to the next stage in the process. I've had more than once, a company that I've been talking to or tracking, and I might say I really like the team, but I'm just not totally sure, if this is the right time for them. And I'll get an update that says, oh, you know what, we made this progress, or we, launched this pilot, and I'm like, oh wow, this is incredible. Yeah, let's keep the conversation going. Let's move you to the next stage of the process. So those updates can be really important and really impactful in your journey as well. And that's it for me on tips.
Awesome. That was a great presentation, Jennifer and Keith. Thank you so much. There's a couple of questions that do have a lot of the thumbs up. So we're going to start with the most popular one here, which I see from Muzakir. And he's asking regarding this is a question regarding solo founders. So what about the solo entrepreneur? Should they still apply to Techstars? So from a managing director perspective, how do you guys evaluate solo founders?
Yeah. You want to go? I'll take this one first, and then you take the next one first, and we'll go back and forth. How's that work? Okay. All right. So I do have solo founders in my programs, and they can do quite well. I will say that the first thing is just an open dialogue. It's not just about like how I review it. It's how will you gain benefit from a program like this and then succeed as a founder. So on those two separate lanes, maybe I'll start with the second first, which is, can the company be successful? And if a single founder is in a good position to be the expert in this category, and you're going to need a team, so they don't necessarily have to be co-founders, but you're able to state a compelling vision that makes other people want to follow and be part of it, whether they need to cover tech or operations or whatever. You've shown an ability to attract people to follow you. That still can be compelling as a startup to have a solo founder surrounded by growing team over time. The program piece of it is an additional layer, though, which is to say that the program is a lot of work, right? So it's like going to the executive MBA while you're still got a full-time job, and so if the question becomes like how many hours do you want to work a week, and do you have the bandwidth to do it? It's very helpful to go through the program with another person, even if they're not a co-founder. So whether that's someone just helping administratively or one of your employees or something like that, it's quite helpful to have more than one person involved, or to have someone running the ship while you're busy in programmatic activities. So we do look for those and pressure test that you really do have the bandwidth to take advantage of this. Otherwise, it'll be mutually frustrating. Jennifer, I don't know how you look at it.
Yeah, 100%, totally agree. And I'd say even having another person, as you mentioned, even just be able to participate in the program with you, I'd say especially during mentor meetings, like that is a great a great way to get just another person's point of view. A lot of times in those meetings, you may hear some feedback from a mentor and you're too busy writing notes. Like, it's just great to have a second person to hear, make sure you're hearing the same things. Sometimes founders have happy ears where they don't necessarily hear some of the critique or hear some of the criticism or feedback. And so it's great to have another person to really bounce those ideas off of as well.
Yeah.
Great.
And then, sorry, one more thought just on that too, is get even before thinking about applying and how it'll affect your chances of getting in, think about whether you really want to do this, because it is, to make 2 years progress in 3 months, guess what? It's a lot of work. There's a lot of workshop. There's a lot of things you're doing layered on top of running your business. We think it's extremely beneficial, and the alumni would say that. However, do an honest self-evaluation on whether or not you're ready to take that on. Because it's not like the business will keep running itself while you're busy doing this. And so I think the first thing is like kind of convincing yourself that it's a right time, right place for you to do it. And then explaining it to us should follow from that. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, totally. And me having gone through one of the programs many years ago with a startup I was working for, it's really, really important for founders to really know how to manage their time, because building your company does not stop just because you're in program. So you're in program full time, 30 to 40 hours a week, and then you're also building your company. So you're learning and implementing all at once. So very, very important to really have a hold on your time management. All right. This is another popular one from Zinnia. Do you accept pre-MVP early stage startups, or do you need bare minimum MVP traction? What types of traction are you looking for in a very early stage pre-revenue startup? We are currently building our MVP. So how do startup founders really stand out, pre-MVP stage?
Yeah, so I would say we do take early stage founders, right? There's definitely a range in there. So some of the companies that join the program are going to be pre-revenue, some will be post-revenue, some will have $0 of investment prior to Techstars, some will have raised before. I think each program has, is probably going to have a little bit of a difference here, but I know for my program, we do want the founders to have some sort of either MVP, working prototype that they can put in someone's hands, get feedback, and be able to iterate on. Without that, then it's really hard to gain momentum in the program to really accelerate forward. You need to have something to accelerate. So I would say, if, for example, when you are applying to the program, your MVP isn't ready yet, but you know that by the time the program starts, it will be, like, that's great, let us know that. And that's something that we can work with you on. And then in terms of traction, I think Keith mentioned this when he was sharing a little bit about it could be revenue, it could be paying customers, it could be pilots, it could be you've done a ton of customer discovery and have started to validate in a certain way. Like, it's just some sort of, again, showing that you're moving things forward in a certain way, and each company is going to be different in that regard. Keith, anything else on your side?
The only thing I'd tack on is, and I agree completely, pre-MVP is a tough time to do this just because it's, you need to be iterating on something. I would probably suggest in most cases a pre-accelerator program such as our Founder Catalyst might be a better place to start making that progress, because you are, the accelerator is good at accelerating you at whatever stage you're at, right? So it can be pre-revenue, revenue, whatever it is. I think you're better served by holding your 6% dilution to a little bit later stage where it can really have a more material impact on your trajectory than in the early customer discovery, which can be done in a pre-accelerator. So I think that it's not necessarily in your best interest. I will say the exception to the rule, like I've had a pre-MVP company come in and they were, by way of context, MIT professor and PhD student, experts in their field, and the mentorship of our particular vertical program was ideal for really pinpointing where to go to market first and where to apply it. So it has to be an extraordinary case of founder market problem fit to make it make sense to do it at that early stage.
Awesome. Let's continue talking about standing out, startups that have recently stood out to you. Do you have any stories that you want to tell, or anything that you have seen recently that made you go, wow, like, I really love this startup. This founder really particularly stood out to me?
Oh gosh, great question. It really, honestly, it's just it's not a single thing. It's just that list of the criteria really is the things that's really how I think about it. And so first, would be, and we're just in selection right now for our next program. So I'm thinking about actual founders who are getting offers as we go, and we're and maybe about to today if you're listening. But it starts with team. That's my first interview. I lead with the big stuff, like tell me your vision and your elevator pitch. So can they tell the compelling story about where they're heading? Is there a problem that they're uniquely capable of solving? Does it feel like they'll be able to bring people along in their vision? Because if I'm compelled, then other people will be, and you have to bring a lot of people along in your vision. And then, it's a big market that's aligned with our vertical and yeah, it's all the above, and the companies that get in fairly easily kind of go 6 for 6 down that list, and not everyone goes 6 for 6. So there can be don't think that you have to wait until you have everything together. But so we look for things that are a lack of fatal flaws, like are you about to run out of money and you're going to crash and burn before we can get through the accelerator, and because that then is too short a runway to make some progress, but. Yeah, I think you were looking for an anecdote, and I don't really have an anecdote. It's just because it's not a single thing. It's the collection of all of it.
No, that was perfect. Jennifer, I'm interested to hear if you have any recent stories with startups that really stood out to you.
So I like to say that I don't have any favorite children. So I can't necessarily pinpoint one, but I totally agree with Keith. I think, we look for exceptional founders at the core of it. So, and the teams that they bring and they surround themselves by. And so each company is different and unique, and they're all solving different problems. But I think the core is that they are incredibly uniquely positioned to be the ones to solve this problem that they're tackling. And so that's really what we look for, and really stands out to us.
Great. This is another one from Steven. He is asking, what are the most common challenges that startups face during the program, and how does Techstars help overcome them?
Yeah, I think time is honestly a big one. I think it's, a lot of founders are used to juggling just like doing their startup and their life, and now it's their startup and their life and Techstars, and it's a lot. So I think, different parts of the program, goes a little bit in waves where the beginning is super intense and the end is super intense, and in the middle, you're just trying to drive forward and get more traction. But I think learning that balance, and Techstars is here, like we are here to be supportive of our founders. If founders are having a hard time, regardless of what it is, like we are here to support them. I mean, I've taken phone calls from my founders at all hours of the night to say, yes, you can still do this, and I'm here to help you. And so it really, we work with you, and sometimes it's saying, okay, you know what? You don't do this session or don't do this meeting. Let's refocus you. Let's get you back on track. Let's figure out what priorities should take place, to be able to mental health is at the forefront. Like we say, honestly, like when we go through, we say it's you, your family, your business, and then Techstars. Like we want to make sure you're really prioritizing and taking care of yourself, front and center. So whatever that takes, we are there to support the companies. But I'd say the biggest challenge probably is time.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work during those 13 weeks. We have a question from LinkedIn. If founders have a wife or a husband, is this a red flag? So how do you view, founders who do have a family?
Meaning if the co-founders are
Mhm.
spouses, or if it just. So I'm not sure I'm interpreting the question right, but if it's that if you're saying if I'm married, is that a problem? No, it's good.
Sorry, let me reframe this, because I read this wrong. So if the co-founders are husband and wife, and they're building a company together, is that something that you look at negatively?
So having founded a business with my wife, and having had a extremely successful company in my last class that are married, Weddy.com, W-E-D-Y. They were on Shark Tank as well. If you're planning a wedding, go see what they're doing. No, it's something to ask a lot of questions about, though, right? And so it's what roles are you playing? How do you resolve conflict in the team? So it's like any co-founder thing, but with a lot more overhead. Will tend to there are ways in which it can be helpful and ways in which it can be negative. It will show up in investor meetings in the future that that it could be a thing. So it is worth probing, but it's not like it's not an automatic no. But yeah, anything relating to founding team will always there's always still drilling down on something. Let's say that on how teams are working together. But yes, it does raise questions, but it's not an automatic no.
I
Now that
totally agree. I've had founders in my past cohorts that have been married as well, and so just as we're going to evaluate the team as the team, and obviously take that into consideration. But it's not like that's not a red flag for us either.
And a follow-up question on the same, red flag topic. What are some red flags that you can observe very early on in the interview process or just like in the evaluating process? I know, Jennifer, you talked briefly about, being transparent is very important. Like, what other tips can you offer founders on not to do?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of red flags, I think seeing the team dynamics. And so sometimes we do see some red flags in those initial conversations where, maybe the way that they handle their disagreements and they resolve conflicts on their team is not necessarily healthy, or we see, people talking over each other and not being respectful, during those sort of team conversations, may raise some red flags as well in terms of how they're able to navigate their relationship in terms of building the company together. So.
Great. Keith, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think that's right. Look, the founder dynamic is the co-founder dynamic is hard, right? I mean, it's a long-term relationship, of mutual respect. We spend a lot of time on it in the program itself. We bring in an expert coach to work with every single company on it. And even if you don't think there's a problem, we want you to work on it because this is a relationship that's really important to nurture and to have good communications and styles. It's perfectly complementary to have different styles from your co-founder, and you need to understand each other well. The analogies to marriage hold. It's obviously different, but there's a lot that's in common. If you're not thinking about relationship issues with your co-founder or co-founders, you should be, because they're going to come up at some point, even if it's going really well today. So it's good to understand each other well. So if there are some things that are still to be resolved, we'll ask about those. Like an example of one that's always challenging for me is when I see co-CEO, because that tends to be a formula for things not working well in the future. It's like you haven't pre-resolved, like who's going to be taking the investor meetings, who's going to be on stage at demo day. It doesn't mean that you're not equals, but there's got to be like some mechanism of breaking a tie and of knowing who's in different roles within the company. So those are things that would lead to follow-up questions. But yeah, we don't expect it to be perfect, but we do want to see that you can move the business forward.
Yeah, and I have seen, managing directors talk about how they can see that dynamic even during like that first initial team video. So can you talk about the importance of like this couple-minute video in the beginning of the application process?
Yeah, so I will say, yeah, so thanks for asking that, actually. I should have put that on the tips section because it is important. So the sequence in which, we probably all do this a little bit differently, but the sequence in which I read an application when I'm looking at one, and usually it's someone other than me that's doing the pre-read. So it comes to my attention after it's gotten through a little bit of screening. But I'll tend to look at the problem, solution, description of the business, and make sure I understand, okay, what are they doing? And then I'm clicking on the team video next. I want, that's your opportunity to talk to me directly through the page. I'm also I'm a math guy. I don't read well, so a visual is really helpful to me. But so introduce yourselves, right? It doesn't have to be flashy. It's not, the production value doesn't matter, but it's just in your own voice, like say who you are, what you're working on, what you do. And I don't know that I can solve for what the magic formula is there, but just being, brief and tell me your background a little bit and maybe why you're the ones to solve this concisely, bring out your strongest points. We'll probably drill through to your LinkedIns as well and see your background, so have those up to date. If your LinkedIn does not have at the beginning of it that you're currently working on this company, there's, you're full-time employed somewhere else and haven't updated it somewhere yet on LinkedIn, and that's an issue as well. But the video is your chance to succinctly describe yourself. Don't send in one that you've done, 3 years ago that's this fancy, well-produced thing, because it doesn't matter. Like, get your cell phone out and just talk to us.
Yeah, and Keith, I've also seen some team videos where founders address another accelerator at the beginning.
Yeah, Jennifer brought that up.
Video Techstars. So I'm wondering, do you view that as like, that is not good?
It's like, it's not an automatic no, it's just a sloppy mistake, right? So it would say, I'm still looking to your introduction of yourself. It's not like, oh, I'm offended by that. It's more that if that's the level of attention you put into the application, then how seriously were you taking this? So it's like putting the college admissions officers talk about this all the time too, right? Like when you have your Dartmouth application, it says, I'd love to go to Harvard. Like, it's kind of like an issue.
Yes, exactly. Oh, those are very good tips. Thank you for that. Another popular question here is from Anna, and I know you guys touched a little bit on this topic. Can you explain the panel interview process and what is expected as the last step of the interview process? So now that you guys are in the middle of the screening committee, like, what can you offer founders as far as preparation? What can they expect?
Yeah, so I actually am hosting a screening committee tomorrow, so I'm in the deep of it right now. I love screening committee. It's really fun for me because I get to sort of see all these founders again and hear them pitch and sort of start sharing them with our network a little bit, or our close network. But it does go by really fast. It's really hard to convey all the sort of main points of your business, your team, the progress, the traction, the market size, like all in 5 minutes. And so, as to Keith's point, like being as concise as you possibly can and really to the point, to drive home those key areas is really important. Once you join if you're really lucky enough to join Techstars, like, we definitely teach you how to do like the 30-second elevator pitch, the 60-second, the 5-minute, depending on your situation. And so starting to learn that early of like, okay, what are the key points that I want to make sure I convey that it will be compelling to tell this story? Because it comes down to storytelling. So just being passionate about what you're building, why you're building it, the traction you've had to date. So we provide some guidance to the founders in terms of that. I think there are maybe some programs who say, like, don't use any slides, other programs who give you the option. I've found, we've actually done it both ways before. We have found that the companies that use just even a couple of quick slides does help sort of support. Some people are more visual anyway. And so being able to just have a couple of supporting slides in the background while you're pitching, we've found to be particularly helpful. But like I said, the panel is comprised of really our close network of experts. And so they're there to cheer you on. They are not there to try to trick you or stump you in an answer in their Q&A. They want to let you shine. And they're just going to drill in on some questions that are top of mind, that sort of bubble up from the pitch of, oh, tell me a little bit more about the pilot. Tell me a little bit more how you're thinking about the big vision for this company. So they're really there to help you bring up to light and to help you shine as much as you can.
And same on our end, and just two quick tips for pitches, just because Jennifer mentioned it. One is on the elevator pitch, we have a great formula for that I recommend everyone look at, and we train on this to even present to us. That's at the Techstars Entrepreneurs Toolkit. So you can search, I think it's toolkit.techstars.com.
I'll go ahead and send it on the chat, by the way.
Perfect. And then Nicole Glaros, one of our legendary managing directors from, I think this is our second managing director in Boulder, has a kind of how-to guide on how to do an elevator pitch, and it's really good. So that's the succinct one. And then if you're looking for how to do kind of a 3 to 5 minute pitch, watch some of our demo day videos, because they're on the one hand, they're there's kind of a formula to getting people through a hook, problem, solution, and then rest of the information you need. You can find those, for instance, you might have this as well, Jennifer, but on the Techstars Economic Mobility Accelerator page, we have last year's demo day there in full, so you could find a dozen different pitches of companies that are explaining their businesses quite well.
Keith and Jennifer, would you argue that knowing how to pitch as a founder is arguably one of the best skills that a founder could have?
100%, right? So you will need to bring people along in your vision. You are the leaders, you're the founders, you're the leaders of your company. Right now, you got multiple hats because you're rolling up your sleeves, building it yourself, doing all the things. You're in the weeds with trying to get customers to adopt your product. Take that same skill set up a layer, and now you need to get other people to adopt your company, right? So all your skills on explaining your product and your solution and selling are the same, but now think about selling the company as a whole. You need to tell the story of the company, which is bigger than telling the story of your product fit for your customers' needs. And being able to do that effectively is what gets you employees, it gets you customers, it gets you investors. And so that's a fundamental core skill set. And being able to tell that story at different lengths of time is really key. I will also add, and we talk about this a lot in the program, that the ability to articulate it succinctly interacts with the strategy itself. We consider them two sides of the same coin. So often, if your strategy is muddled, you won't be able to tell a clear story. And the act of having to net it out and explaining it clearly to a potential investor or partner or whatever it is will, in effect, force you to clarify your strategy. And startups can only do so many things. So if your strategy isn't clear, if you can't articulate it well, you're doing too many things. You're boiling the ocean. You haven't picked what your lane yet. So it's a really, really valuable exercise at so many levels.
Great. Yeah, I sent over the Entrepreneur's Toolkit in the chat, and I also sent over our webpage for Techstars events. We host pitching series, fundraising series, so check that out and definitely stay tuned for more valuable events. I want to say, Jennifer and Keith, thank you so much for dropping these gems today on how to stand out during the application process. I know there was several questions that did not get answered just because we are short on time, and they were a lot. So if you still have any pressing questions, go ahead and email them to startups@techstars.com. We are consistently helping founders out with anything regarding Techstars. And we also have a Reddit community, so go ahead and join the Techstars Reddit community where we can engage, share some other resources, and get your questions answered. Thank you so much all for joining us today. We will be sending out this recording in the next few days, and I hope to see you on the next one.